live links, it seems that every time we try to do the ZOG Comics review, there's always some technical problem. I stream every night, but only in this show. We gotta have little gremlins. Anyway, my dear guest will be joining us shortly. Dillard Q. Thurman, the most amazing ZOG Comics guy on the block. So he'll be with us shortly. And we were just discussing some really interesting things to talk about for today's show. I like that Dillard has a mind for doing topics that are not just straight politics, but talking about just various other forces that exist in culture and sociology, things of this nature that impact the way we live, how we behave, all of that good stuff. So I just sent him the link to join me, and here he is, ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it should be kicking in on any second. Here he comes. Here he comes, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
The Zog master himself.
Master of the ZOG.
Yes. Oh God, wouldn't that be great? Dillard Q. Thurman, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good.
Okay.
Doing better anyways. How are you doing?
Oh, well, I'm okay. Thanks for your patience with the silly internet stuff. I stream like almost every night, but it's only when we do our show that I have these kind of technical problems. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to be paranoid. I won't say any silly conspiracy theory stuff, but you got to wonder. Anyway, we're here. It is now. And there you go. So, well, just a little while ago, you and I were discussing some possible topics for the show. What were those things that interest you today?
I had mentioned evolutionary survival strategies
Mm,
and friend enemy distinction.
wow, that's wild. Was there one more? I seem to think there was one more.
Oh, I'd like to get into. I don't know if I ever told you my theory of the origins of race.
Wow. Okay, let's start off with that because let me kind of walk into it a little bit. I just had one of those stupid debates with a bunch of dumb lefties and normies on social media where, one of these guys was like, define race. Like there's no definition for race. Define race. I'm smarter than you, that kind of like, I'm going to talk circles around you and just deny the reality of a thing because I can change the definition of words. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, asshole, this is what blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying what I'm pointing out is there's no human race. Race is a classification system, and that there are genetic differences. And then they're, oh no, race is just a construct, man. It's just, I'm better than you.
Social construct.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, if that's the case, then how come people can determine the race of say a dead body that's been decayed? And then I gave him like 5 different examples, like skull size and bone density, and of course DNA test itself. And oh, no answer to that. I'm like, what you're saying is you don't believe in science, asshole. All because you hate white people. All of these irritating, stupid faux philosophies, faux sciences, if you will, just to justify their hatred of whites. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway, with that little intro, I'll let you go ahead and tell us what your thoughts are.
Well, it's interesting that it only comes up when you're talking about white people. It's like,
Exactly.
why don't you deconstruct another race? Like, go up
Sure.
to another person and ask what their race is,
Right,
and
right, right.
tell them that it's just a social construct.
A quick hello to Matthias Sebastian Madrid Muro. Hola, hola, welcome. Good to have you here. I hope you speak English. um, so go on. You have a theory on the origins of race?
Oh yeah.
Okay, hit me up.
Well, first I got this from Robert Zepper,
Okay,
or Sepper rather.
Sepher, I think, with an F
Sepher.
sound. That's my
and
understanding.
and Sepher himself is a Iranian Jew,
Okay.
but he is very sort of a he presents himself as someone that's on our side, and he has a lot of good information mixed in with the what I would call poison information. But he presented,
That's how they work.
yes,
That's how they operate. Yeah. But go on. Go on.
but yeah, instead of that's enough about Robert. But
Right, right, right.
he has presented the human hybridization theory, where he would discuss the different hominid species from the past
Yes.
and how this corresponds almost exact with modern races. So you have like the Denisovans,
Oh, okay. Right, right, right.
you have the Neanderthals, you have the Cro-Magnon,
Mm-hmm.
Homo erectus, and there's others, and they
Mm-hmm.
all have sort of passed, but their their genetic markers are residual in modern humans. And I don't um, believe in Homo sapiens.
Okay.
I don't. I don't think we came from Africa, because there are Europeans with alleles, which are just genetic groupings that are not present in Africans or
Okay.
found anywhere on the African continent. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that can be thrown out the window. I think that in and of itself is sort of a psyop. That Frank Boas came up with the out of Africa theory stuff.
Mm. Mm.
But if you look at the relationship, for example, of the hominids like 35,000 years ago, Cro-Magnon suddenly appeared, sort of on the scene,
Okay.
fully formed with a
Mm.
large prefrontal cortex, with the skull to house it.
Yeah.
And but what were indigenous to Europe at the time were Neanderthals.
Mm.
They were all over Europe until the Cro-Magnon came, and the
Mm.
Cro-Magnon like drove them to near extinction and
Oh.
literally out of Europe
Oh.
and into the Caucasus Mountains. And you will find a lot of the highest concentration, actually, of hybrid Neanderthal, what they call Homo sapiens, but I would just submit that it's Cro-Magnon that they
Okay.
had interbred with Cro-Magnon, and that's how we get them. That's how we get modern. Like if you compare the skull of
Mm-hmm.
the Denisovan, like you get you get Asian phenotypes,
I
and
see.
if you compare the Homo erectus to the African
Yeah.
fellows,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's one for one. And of course, we
Mm.
descend. Whites come from Cro-Magnon,
I
and
get it. Yeah.
the innovation of the Cro-Magnon is the prefrontal cortex. It's like
Right. Right. Right.
forward thinking and planning
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
imagination. And I would suggest that this is where we get trolls from. We have like a genetic blood memory of living with these Neanderthals.
Ah,
And I have a book actually that goes into this. It's called Neanderthal Predation Theory, and how we
fascinating.
have like a sort of deep-seated trauma of
Mm.
these basically beast men that would raid
Yeah.
us and steal our women and children. And we have a
Ooh.
lot of myths about trolls
Ah.
and so on. And I would further submit that if you look at the Neanderthal skull, it has a very large nasal cavity, and
Mm.
I think living in cold climates, because they're indigenous to Europe and then had to adapt to
Mm-hmm.
the Caucasus Mountain area, that they
Mm.
had big, long noses
Huh.
um, to protect, from the cold air and stuff.
Okay.
And this is where we get trolls. This is where we get like the Beowulf
Wow.
myths.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Beastmen. I want to do a fantasy, basically like a fantasy graphic novel or something where it's
Mhm.
the hidden history of the Cro-Magnons and being, assaulted by
Hmm.
roving gangs of Neanderthal
Wow.
like beastmen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
that's
you
it.
know, it's the old like control the past and you'll control the future thing, you know? And
Yes.
I forget the guy's name. Survive the Jive. He put out
Tom
a
something.
video on Cheddar Man. Did you ever hear of Cheddar Man?
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah, that was a
stupidest.
hoax.
Yeah, it was a hoax. And I mean that people are out there literally creating fake like a hoax to say that, oh yeah, whites descend from these colored people. You know,
Yes.
it shows the agenda. It shows the agenda.
They're
It
desperate.
reveals. Oh my god, like and there's a side of me recently that's kind of like, what's driving this? What is driving this? Because like the public will just blindly believe it. They'll just blindly accept such things that are on the face of it absurd, like openly absurd.
Hmm.
And like um even and then they'll use stuff like Cheddar Man to say like, oh yeah, colored people have lived in England for thousands of years, and therefore, we're just as indigenous as you are, and gimme, 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 all that horseshit. Um, so it's obviously tied into politics and what have you today. Yeah, I don't know. My thinking is that it's jealousy. I feel like it's a kind of jealousy. Um, I saw it like there was like a Twitter post recently that I shared, and the dude was saying something like, you know what, if there actually was a superior race, everybody else would probably really hate them and be jealous of them. And then he goes on to like describe every single thing that we're dealing with, like all of the shit that we have to deal with all the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm just saying, it's just a theory I have. Um, pretty rough stuff, but yeah, the
Yeah.
truth is
Well,
out there, guys. Go ahead.
well, that sort of gets into like friend enemy distinction politics. Like politics is just different groups competing for resources,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Sure, sure.
or who said it? It was like it's politics is war by other means.
Wow, wow. Yeah, I've heard that before.
I
Right.
forget who that is.
It's probably like Voltaire or somebody. I don't know. It's a philosopher, but yeah. And I mean, it's like I would never. I don't know how to say this. It's like you can't not. I don't know if you look at everything clinically, if you look at everything just scientifically, you can simply make statements that are very obvious about anything. You know what I mean? Like this thing is superior to that thing because X. And such truths are just plainly fucking evident. And you don't. It's like saying the sky is blue and the grass is green. You don't actually have to say it because everybody can see it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but like there's a kind of a sociopathic neurosis surrounded around like whites, and of course the small hats, the zogsters are the ones that weaponize all of this language, supremacy. That's why I like Lucas Gage. He always talks about things like Jewish supremacy. you know I forget who's the guy. I gotta remember his name. He's got the terrible hairstyle with the beard. He's like an ex MMA dude. Dan
Oh, the
something or
Dan.
huh?
Dan. Yeah, I know. I remember Dan too,
He's got a weird
but I
last
can't
name.
remember. Yeah.
Kind of like a mullet with a giant beard. But he's very outspoken. He was on, he's on, and then I don't remember the British guy's name.
He
Anyway,
was on
whatever.
Jake Shields.
Yeah, he's all over the place.
Oh, Pierce
So
Morgan.
yeah, Pierce Morgan. He was on Pierce Morgan recently. And anyway, his thing is he's like, it's not about Jews, it's about Jewish supremacy. And I'm like, you can't really separate these things, but I think there's something worth saying here in terms of like And I'm not it's not something that you say because you have to protect yourself, but you just say it because it's logical. That like, there's Jews that don't even I don't think even know what's going on or whatever. But overall though, it's it's a tricky situation. It's a very tricky situation. And whites they've got to know what's going on. They have to know how to talk about it, know how to defend themselves, have some kind of data that they can rely on. But anyway, let's kind of get back a little bit to your concepts. You were talking about something about in group protection or something. I forget.
No. Well, I actually just heard something about how Jews have more genetically in common with each other than they do Europeans, even amongst their different groups, like Sephardic, and I forget that
Mm.
the third one that really old.
Ashkenazi.
There's there's Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and then I forget the other one that is kind of from Spain.
So for that is Sephardic, I believe. The Spanish Jews, if I'm right. We need
Yeah,
somebody.
there's
Yeah, go ahead.
Maringe, I forget, but what they do as a sort of part of their strategy, their supremacy strategy,
Yeah.
is that a lot of people will think that they interbreed and they are involved in gene stealing, but
Mhm.
what they do is they select for people who look more like the group that they're infiltrating
Uh-huh.
to
Uh-huh.
morph into, and they will form families along those lines. So they are very. It's like I think of it in terms of like a narcissistic relationship or a toxic relationship. On the micro level, you've got a
Mm,
boat
mm,
and you meet a person and they they infiltrate somehow. They get on there and
mhm.
you they now you're intermingled with them, but they remain separate and they're actually plotting against you the whole time.
Right, right, right.
And
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
they're very aware of that as a strategy. So when you say I think most of them know
I
what's
see.
going on.
I see. I see. Um, yeah, I've had personal experiences with like people who were former friends that were Jews that had to give me a talking to, and like, oh, I don't like
Pull you
the
aside.
yeah, yeah, pull me aside. I don't like the road you're going down here, Don, and like, what are your thoughts on this? And don't you think that diversity is our greatest strength? And well, don't you think this, that, and the other thing, ABC, and like, just grilling me on all the usual shit that you're supposed to toe the line on. And I mean that happened when I wasn't J pilled. I didn't know what was going on. And then after I did wake up, I look back and it kind of gives me the chills a little bit to think like, damn, like, wow, like this is a thing, and it's like a civilizational survival strategy, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately parasitic in its nature, though. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, Pretty harsh.
I remember I was doing stand up comedy for a little while and
That's awesome.
I did a joke that was basically like, what do you call a Jew that crosses the Atlantic Ocean? And I was like, I don't know, a transatlantic Jew.
Uh huh.
And the guy after, I mean, it's not funny, but I was doing like an anti-comedy thing.
Yeah.
And guy afterwards, he's like, "Oh, you're anti-Semitic," and I had no idea. I had no idea what I was really saying at the time. I was just. I don't even know how I thought of that joke because it wasn't really. I wasn't thinking in terms of like that at all. And that was
Oh,
like the
okay.
first time like people are. I realized that people were very sensitive
To that topic. Yeah.
about that. They know to pounce on it.
Wow, they know to pounce on it. So, like, that's one of the most ingenious things is strategies, I guess, if you will, is to train everybody to police themselves. You know what I mean? Like, there's you know what I'm saying? Like to
Yeah.
have that's essentially what the whole progressive liberal culture is it's that kind of shut everybody down, police everybody into falling in line, towing the party line, all of that shit. Um, and I don't know. I guess there's that thought of like, well, somehow we fell for it, and we've got to somehow take responsibility or whatever. And I'm like, well, fine, okay, but like these are quite extraordinary circumstances. I think the main takeaway is that whites, one of our attributes as a people is that we tend to act in a way that's very in group conformity. If I'm not phrasing this very eloquently, but
Social
we
approval.
we have a strong sense of like conforming to the in group, and that
Hmm.
is what keeps us alive, because we were surviving winters, or whatever, all that stuff. And I think, how do I say, so when somebody comes along and they look like us, and and then they sort of dictate how we're supposed to think and act, and inject new Marxist language into our culture and such like that, then there's that instinct like, oh, we're supposed to keep up with this. We're supposed to, yeah, okay, okay. What's the new? Didn't you get the memo? Like I can remember years ago, and I had moved out of New York City, but one of my friends came to visit me. New York City, of course, being extremely liberal, and there was some Brokeback Mountain came out, which is
Uh,
and I would never watch a movie like that. I despise that shit. And somehow he brought it up, and immediately my reaction was like, "Oh, that's nasty," like that's gross. And then he very quickly rushed in and said, "Oh, you being disgusted by gays is not politically correct anymore. You can't do that." And
yeah, it's the
I got
current year.
fucking furious. I was like, "You can't tell me how to feel. Fuck you. Fuck the fuck off. You cannot tell me what my fucking feelings are, you know?" I'm like, I was kind of I never in my life had somebody said, "Oh, you can't feel that way. You can't feel a certain way that is true to you, on your particular whatever." And the way in which he said it, just the whole beta male bullshit that these fucking liberals have, it's like I was really thrown by it. I didn't know how to respond. I was like, kind of like a cognitive overload sort of thing. And I didn't comply per se. I pushed back a bit, like, like, this, you can't. I don't know. It's like if I gave you spicy food and your mouth was burning, and then I said, "Oh, you can't complain that it's too spicy." It's like, no, it's fucking spicy. Like I just don't. I don't know. Shit like that to me is diabolical. I find that like deeply psychologically wounding in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was the same way because I went through high school when they were pushing the whole the gay pride flag stuff,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I like
Oh man, I would have
led the charge against it, and it's just like you
good.
can't, you can't because it's just viscerally to be.
Yes.
If anybody was honest, like I'm not homophobic, I'm homo disgusted.
Yes, exactly. Dude, and that took us years just to figure out how to get around that one fucking word. Oh, you're homophobic. I'm like, afraid of gays? What the hell are you talking about? Like, why would you even say something like that? But again, like, they got all the language. Not anymore. I think people are past all that, but for the longest time though, like they, whatever, they kind of like controlled the narrative through this type of thinking. So I don't know. And then there's just liberals that have gone wild. So maybe the survival strategies that we need to have to be really, really connected with linguistics, and knowing, in a sense, like how to read the room, how to defend ourselves, how to see, like, oh, that's false, that just you can't just like say something, and just because you fucking said it makes it true. Like
Yeah,
that kind of shit's really wackadoo.
I think with
Um,
something like the homosexuality is that you're just not going to get half of the population on board because it is a survival strategy. Like, just people just know innately that these people carry disease. Like, if they're going to
Mm-hmm.
get engaged in that activity, they're going to have novel diseases that we don't even have names of yet, and we'll have to invent them, like monkeypox or something. It's like, what are you doing? It's
For
just like
me,
it.
yeah, one of the most damning aspects of just the whole gay community thing is how if you do the math and you break it down, they supposedly they make up like 4% of the population. And then if you
Yeah,
cut that in half, then that's 2% for the males. And then 2% of the population causes 40% of the child rape.
yeah,
40%. Only 2%. No, we talk about
disproportionately represented in that.
right, right. We talk about the black population is 13%, but they create 50% of the crime. Well, how can we, complain about that and then turn around and not notice what the gays are doing to children? And then now you look at the whole like Epstein Island thing, the whole pedophile connection with Hollywood. And there's every time you turn around, there's some new like, oh, that politician is gay or P. Diddy is gay. And like there's some connection between homosexuality and like criminality, Satanism, there's some kind of connection. I haven't really figured it all out yet. But why is there such a gigantic, enormous amount of these kind of people in that kind of demographic? Does that make sense?
I think, yeah, I think it's because it's transgressive and degenerate. And I
Mhm.
I consider just degeneracy a spectrum. Like, there's this sort of
Oh, okay.
safe
Okay.
end. Like, you have a girlfriend, you have sex. It's not procreative,
Yeah.
you know, but it is, you know, for lack of a better term, what God intended or what nature intended.
Mm.
And then you get, like, just something completely divorced from that. And I think it's just uh I think it's a thrill for people for being transgressive, but I do think that it is ma- they're manufactured, and it comes from childhood abuse. Like,
Yes,
they
yes.
create them,
Yeah.
so that's why they want access to children so they can
You
reproduce.
you nailed it. You freaking hit it on the head. I mean, I don't know that it's about reproduction. I think it's they want the
Right.
kids for
In a perverse
sexual
way,
abuse.
they're like
Yeah, yeah.
creating others.
I do get what you're saying, though. That makes some sense. Anyway, let's do a quick hello to the chat. We got some cool people here. Suad is here, said hello. Splattercat, my dear friend, is here. Gondorian, howdy. Chief Moody, holy cow. Evening, troops. It's got to be a little late over there, Chief. How late is it over in the old UK, across the pond there? And my buddy Chief Moody here, he is making his own comic book. He's working on that.
Nice.
So I think what we're going to need to do is get him on the show at some point. It could be fun. He's awesome dude. He's standing up for white indigenous rights in the UK. Fighting the good fight, as they say. So it's great to have you here, my man. It's 12 a.m. over here. Wow. Okay. Well, we better do something entertaining to make it worthwhile for this poor guy. But it is Friday night, I guess, right? Okay. Um, yeah, man, it's interesting. And you guys in the chat, if you have any questions, comments, this is an interactive show, like pretty much all of my shows. I really love to get people engaged in the chat, and that way it's just everybody wins. It's more fun for us all. So Dillard was just talking about different kind of I don't know how you would phrase it, like survival strategies for different groups. I think what you were
Yes.
talking about with the small hats just a moment ago, to me sounds like a kind of eugenics almost. That they are interbreeding with whites in such a way as to fit in with us and look like they're part of us. And
Yes.
and I just kind of wonder how intentional that is, and what
Well,
the outcomes are.
if you read the Torah,
Yeah.
God punishes, and this is, you can almost one for one this with,
Yeah.
he punishes those who marry outside the group,
Okay.
take wives from outside the group, like, who was it? Rebecca and Hagar. Hagar being the mistress,
Okay.
and or was it Sarah? I forget, but basically, like, from another
I
tribe.
think it was Sarah. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
God said, no, she's right. And because of, and I don't know who it is, Isaac or Abraham, I forget exactly, but
Mhm.
he wanted to keep her. And God basically said, oh, I smudged. God said that, no, she's right. Like, she's in the right because, and then, like, he punishes those with mulatto children, or, half mixed race children. And
Okay.
so you look at all of what Yahweh, who I think is basically the an expression of the um the Jewish collective, is,
Mm.
he's rewarding those who, and they're the most interbred people,
Oh,
like,
wow. Yeah.
in the world. Like, that's why they have so many
Yeah.
diseases and stuff,
Wow.
congenital diseases and whatnot. Uh,
Mhm.
so that's what he's rewarding, and that's what they emphasize. They're very intensely focused on who gets married to whom,
Mm.
and, like, staying away from shiksas, which basically just means whore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they have a very clear, in group, out group, friend enemy distinction, and that is their survival strategy. And I think that they developed it very long time ago, when they were in the caves, when they were pushed into the caves out of
Mhm.
Europe.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
do think that, they have watched us,
Mhm.
from afar, and studied
Wow.
us. I
Holy
mean,
crap.
that's,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a book by Douglas Reed called The Controversy of Zion. He goes in and he talks about how the Babylonian captivity was not forced upon them, and they were basically there to study the
Wow.
Babylonians, and
No kidding.
watch and see how they functioned.
Huh.
So they know how to hack us. Like, they're studying us. It's like,
Yeah.
I've had this experience recently when, I've all of a sudden I got an attack from somebody who I thought was gone, like, out of my life, and they
Okay.
just kept come roaring back,
Oh,
and they're like, "You're
Jesus.
my enemy," and I'm like, I didn't really, conceive of you as my enemy. Like,
Yeah.
those were strong words, but,
Yeah.
they were using those, and they were plotting against me, kind of. And it's
Huh.
like, so you're in a battle with somebody that you don't even know that you're
Yeah.
in a battle with, and they're
Yeah.
plotting like every
That's
day.
it's demented. Well, yeah, and I mean it's been like just like the Zionist Congress itself is. I mean, we are where we are because they've been plotting for freaking probably really centuries.
Hmm.
And so this segues well into something that I spoke to you about earlier. Um, I shared it on my social media and I urged everybody to share this interview. Not an interview. There's basically a video of a rabbi who says that Trump is the harbinger of Moshiach, which is like the Jewish savior, and and goes on to describe all of these, like for example, Trump's ear being pierced or whatever when he was shot at. There's something in the Torah that says that this such a person will the servant of the Jews has to have their right ear pierced, and like all of this kind of shit. I don't even honestly know if he really got shot in that thing. That's a whole, like, the day later he has no wound on his ear and there's photographs of it. It's fucking retarded. But the point is that this rabbi was saying that in on October 2nd, 2027, the Moshiach, the Jewish Savior, will come, and that will mean that the Jews will rule the world from Israel. And it's in plain English. He says it directly. There's no, I'm not interpreting anything. It's just he says it straight out front. And that's why I'm saying, like, they're giving us a timeline. They're giving us a freaking timeline saying, like, that's going to be the final hour for the goyim. You will, like, Noahide law will be instituted globally, and you will either be our willing slaves or be beheaded, because that is the law. And so, you know, I mean, if it's hoop-de-doo, some kind of, like, what do you call it? Like, like, sort of religious superstition. And I can see people would rush it off as that, but it's, I don't, I don't personally believe that, but what I do believe is they believe it. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And since they've got the whole world in, like, a pincer move right now, where they control all the fucking governments, they're blah blah blah. We all know the deal. Then if they're telling us, like, according to our religion, this is what's coming, then, and even in the sense of, like, there's this kind of, like, satanic magic where you're supposed to tell your victim what you're going to do, and they do it through film all the time, like, the all the time they have
Predictive
all
programming.
predictive programming. And then if you don't do anything to stop it, that means that you comply with it. Therefore, they can get away with the evil that they do. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So, to me, this is, like, not a small deal. This is a really, 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 really big deal. And I feel like we should be talking about it. We meaning the whole movement, not just you and me now. But that everybody should see that the timeline has been, set out there, and that, the clock is ticking, basically. You know what I'm saying? And I'd like to ask people in the chat, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that? But Mr. Thurman, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I remember the red heifers was
Yeah,
a
they got
thing,
one. Yeah, yeah.
and then and I know just from my own dealing with messianic or apocalyptic types.
Mm-hmm.
I have some in my family.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. You're talking about Christians, so
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I and their obsession with the third temple coming, and then
yes, 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 yes.
Jesus descending on a cloud above the Mount Olives and to the sound of a trumpet and this and that. I
Hmm.
mean, I believe that biblical prophecy is a like a hypnotic spell.
Yes, yes.
Like,
Hmm.
so I mean, they like it's not written into the fabric of reality. They
Hmm.
just make it come true because they have power, and every time they get a little bit more power, they feel a little more confident. I mean, yeah, you just listen to the rabbis to know what the
Right,
world
right.
power at
Sure.
the moment is planning. Because
Um, yeah, and I'd say even more than that, in the world of the occult, words create reality, and
you know,
that's what casting a spell literally is. So, if imagine people for freaking centuries saying, repeating over and over, and believing that this is going to happen, then it's going to bring it into reality. It'll manifest it right up into reality. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So that's a very terrifying thought. And if you just forget about magic or whatever and just look at it strictly, politically, like, all the pieces are in place for this. All the pieces are in place. Um, so I don't know. I don't want to, don't panic, but this is what's coming. And I don't know. I think it's time that people kind of get that on their radar. So let's look at some comments. Splattercat says that that Shiska means unclean meat, or unclean woman. Uh,
yeah.
he says, I just have to ask, is forcing prophecy the same thing as actually fulfilling it? Interesting. Forcing prophecy. So I get what you're saying. It's kind of, so in my view, Judaism and Islam are not religions, they're ideologies. And they're ideologies wrapped in religion. That, in olden times, what have you, if you can take a kind of an ideology of ruling over other people, saying that it's okay to enslave people and like have sex with children under 9 and just all the fucked up shit that they believe, then how is any of that religion? I always say, like, if your God tells you you can kill people, your God's the devil. You know what I'm saying? And so there's nothing spiritual about any of that. And so I, this is kind of my answer to that, is that you, there, the idea, it's a word play in a sense. Like, it's not really fulfilling prophecy because there is no prophecy, but they're getting people to believe it is, therefore it, in their minds, it's fulfilling prophecy. But to jump back to you, Dillard, like the way a lot of Christians, not all, the way that they just faithfully embrace, like, oh yeah, well, yeah, the Jews are going to do this, and then there's going to be a period of attrition, and then Jesus is going to come and make it all better.
Yeah,
It's
so it's all worth it.
it's a complete. It's just like, it's like, yeah, please take me into slavery because I know somebody is going to come later and get me out. Why?
Yeah.
It's so horrible. Anyway, let's read some comments here. Matt W, good to have you back with Mr. Matt. He says, "Shalom, my fellow vessels of the divine sparks." Very good, very well done. He says they wrote the scripts that we hold so dear. So, and he's got scripts in like parentheses, parentheses, parentheses. Yeah. So there it is, and there you go.
Divine
Um,
vessels. That's better than the Kelly pots from the dark. What is it? The dark other side that the Kabbalah talks about.
hmm,
But if you read the Old Testament or the Torah, it's all about worldly gains in the here and now that will be granted to the chosen people if they follow,
hmm,
if they keep their covenant with the Yahweh entity. It
hmm.
has nothing to do with the afterlife. And then you get to the New Testament, and it's all about your riches in the hereafter or the thereafter. After
Or the
after
after,
your
or the after party. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all about your spiritual, your soul, after you depart this world. So it has nothing to do with like it's the opposite of a evolutionary survival strategy.
So this just backs up my view about uh, Judaism being an ideology. You get my point. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, follow these rules and believe this stuff, and you will be gifted
I call it
47
a
virgins, or I don't, whatever the hell it might be.
I
Um,
call it a supremacy strategy.
Well, that works fine. By the way, Matt W says yes, the Kelly pots. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back. Mimos Full is here. I'm sorry we screwed up the last video and you were waiting for us. It's good to have you back. There's 15 of us here, chat, and only 12 likes. Yeah, and there's now 18 actually, according to what I can see. You guys jump in the convo. Especially my feds. I'd like to hear the Fed view on this. Any feds out there, feel free to jump in on the convo.
Oh, you've got
Um,
Fed minders
oh yeah,
assigned
man.
to you?
Say, oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I know at least one, but anyway, it could be a good educational experience. Anyway, Matt W says they stole our identity, bruh. We was the chosen Kongs of the Most High Hashem. Mimos Full says double tap and chat. Thanks for helping out. I appreciate you. Hey everybody, haha. So it's just great to have the coolest people. I really do have like the best fans on my show, and I'm not even kidding. They're like the coolest people. But yeah, it always comes back to, like, at the end of the day, what do we do? And talking about the stuff is part of it. We got to know what's going on. Everybody they bring something to the table. You have knowledge. Matt W's got knowledge. I've got something to say. There's, it's just helpful when we're all a part of a process of educating each other. So that's one thing. Sort of reclaiming who we are, being who we are, knowing who we are. These are all important.
Yeah,
Like you're
taking her
bringing it.
own side. That's really number one.
I love that expression. Take your own side. I don't know who came up with that, but like, why can't whites take their own side? And I've had a couple occasions to say that to white normies that I'm like talking to about this topic, and saying like, why are you defending or advocating for your enemies? Why can't you take your own side? And even they go, yeah, why am I saying these things? Just the propaganda. The propaganda it's just so damn deep. you know
Their morals are gone. They lack identity, and so therefore they lack friend enemy distinction, and they don't
yeah.
know who they are. They
Well,
just
the friend enemy distinction thing, I think, is one of the biggest points. A huge point, in fact. um and it's an interesting thing because, like, you and I, day in and day out, a TV commercial comes on, or there's somebody at work that you have to interact with, or there's any number of things that happen, and immediately we can look at it and go like, okay, this is anti-white.
yes,
This puts me down. This takes power away from me. This portrays me in a negative light, and this shit is on 24/7 every fucking place you turn. You can't drive this down the street without seeing some kind of like advertisement with, this and that and the other thing. So this to me is friend enemy distinction. Being able to look at just ordinary stuff like that and say, these are not my friends. These people are not, they're not here to help me. They're robbing me of my country. They're demoralizing me. They're threatening me in various ways, and it doesn't have to be like an immediate threat per se. But like, just for example, and I mentioned this on one of my shows the other day, that I was out with some workmates, and we're just went to like a coffee shop, and the entire coffee shop was run by Indians now, and some
mm.
Muslims. And I tossed out there, I said, that's what white replacement looks like. And they were like, what? What did you just say? Like that kind of thing. And I was like, that's what white replacement. Just see, like, when I used to go to college here years ago, there was none of that stuff. And then they all kind of fell silent into this moment of like, damn, like, like, because they see it, they just don't know how to talk about it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's this is so, like, I talk about this show and my content serving the people in our movement, and this is one of the things that I talk about is strategy. Like, every single one of us is a kind of a soldier out there, and always do the right thing. Always do, don't ever do anything unlawful. Don't ever harm anybody. But what's the old saying? Like, do no harm and take no shit. What I'm saying? So be an example to other whites, and have pride in who you are. So
Well,
let's read a couple chats real fast. Always do. Matt W says it all goes back to post World War II. Donald, I want to thank you, if I didn't already, for getting me to dust off my drafting table. It's been forever since I even doodled anything. Well, rock and roll, big guy. That is freaking sweet. I'm happy to hear that. Good stuff.
oh man, if you have a drafting table, then you gotta use it.
Oh my lord, yeah, it must
I
have been.
miss my drafting tables. I had a really great drafting table with like a pneumatic, like a push
Oh,
bar that would I could move it up and down and everything, and I just
nice, nice.
gave it away like without a
What?
second thought.
Oh
And
my.
then later I'm like, oh man,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
miss my baby.
It's probably like, hitchhiking its way back to you right now. Out in somewhere in the Midwest. It's like, sleeping in a bus stop. Like, oh, I gotta find my way home. Sorry.
It was
But
from the
yeah,
drafting department at the high school that I went to in Massachusetts. They were just giving them away basically. And I said, I'll
it's
buy
like
it
a
for 50
class.
bucks.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's cool.
Yeah, but it's gone. It's
I love
fine.
that. I'm sitting at a pretty decent one right now. I mean, it's just your basic bargain bin. drafting table, but I gotta have one. Moving on. Mimosful says it often seems the reason we can't integrate without diluting each party is because there aren't many groups that actually have an identity. Maybe you could expand on that a bit. That's you're onto something here. Integrate without diluting each party. I'm not quite catching your meaning there. Party, a political party? Is that what we're talking about? So hit me up there. But yeah, so you were, you know, in group survival techniques. This is kind of sort of the topic here. Like, what can we do as whites? Obviously, I was just saying, like, understanding the propaganda that we live in, speaking out, among our own people in a a way that is safe, what else? What are
Well,
some
that's,
other survival strategies for our people?
um, I mean, just shredding false identities. You
Mm,
are who you
mm,
are. I always go back to evolution and like what are we even doing here? I mean, from an evolutionary standpoint,
wow.
we are
Mm,
reproducing and perpetuating the species into the future, and a
mhm,
big part of that is preserving our our traditions, which are that come from nature and have been like tried and true. And I
mhm,
think that goes into religion a lot because if speaking from like an evolutionary sort of point of view, like you want to put into the mouth of God all the things that are good, that
mhm,
you've like as a tribe or a people have like gathered knowledge
mhm,
and put together as just the best practices to survive.
mm.
And like that's what we've been denied, from the burning of the Library of
Library,
Alexandria.
Alexandria. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna mention that.
And then
Um, yeah.
and there's so many authors that like from Germany, for example, that have just been
Mhm,
lost, and it's just because there's a certain group of people whose survival strategy uh involves keeping us down so they can parasite off of us,
yeah.
and to prevent that and or to give us false consciousness, false
Mhm,
identities is part of that sort
mhm,
of
mhm.
strategy.
So before the show, I was listening to one of these it's kind of like history and anthropology special show, whatever, like that something you'd see on the History Channel, and it was about Joseph Goebbels' interest in the occult or something. It wasn't just Joseph Goebbels, but like the Nazi Party. Why were they so interested in this one occult book? And you know, I didn't. The key point to what I'm trying to say is that after they sort of explained everything, then they had like these quasi historian commentators come on, and the first guy they had on was a black dude, and straight away he's like, no, like the Germans want to believe that their ancestors were glorious, but according to these something something this and that, they were lazy and drunk and blah 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 blah, and it was just like shooting down the Germans and like trying so hard to like take a part of this history and culture and just like shit on it, like how can we shit on the Germans even more, like they haven't been shit on enough,
Yeah.
and and in the end it's like that's the whole point of this show. It's not about like let's actually learn something. No, it's about, well, how can we denigrate the Germans and whites in general, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I
Well,
don't
the
know.
Germans were the
Yeah,
most effective people that fought back the liberal order that we're suffering under right now, so they
yeah,
have to
yeah,
shit
yeah,
on
yeah.
them every chance they get.
Oh yeah, it's like an ongoing. It's like a franchise. Like you just have to constantly beat down the Germans, like constantly, constantly. And it's kind of like the Cheddar Man bullshit, where it's like, oh well, we're here. Jamal Johnson from Chicago Southside University is here to talk to us about the real German history. You know, what could possibly go wrong there? You know,
Yeah, not only were you not great, but you weren't even you.
oh
You were
God.
someone else. Like,
I mean,
what the hell are you talking
right,
about?
all of this effort to demoralize us, to rob us from our history identity, it just screams like you are so much more than you know. You are so much more than you know, and what are they hiding? How much have they hidden from us already? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's very profound. Um, Let me see what we got going on in the chat. My friend Mimos Full is super active here. Let's respond to her in a second. Oh yeah, she was answering my question. I was confused about her statement. She says religion. Hold on, it often seems reason we can't integrate um, without diluting each party is because there aren't many groups that actually have an identity. Religion is very well established and they have a strong identity. I get it. Okay. Often they survive as themselves within whatever given society. I hear you. That is a good point. Or place. Whereas Christianity as a group has a large representation, but only some groups vehemently insist on it. Interesting. You guys always talk very frankly, very politely. That respect for every culture's identity, whilst insisting on having your own, is why I stayed and listened. Yeah, well, this isn't the cartoon Nazi hate hour. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to fulfill the cliche of what our enemies say we are. That we're not going to give them what they
Yeah, because
want.
we're not bad people.
No, that isn't it stupid that we have to say that too?
Yeah.
Oh, you want white sovereignty and white demographic interests? You must be a bad person. Like this mentality is so deeply racist against whites. And then when you point that out to somebody, they have like massive cognitive dissonance. They're like, only whites can be racist. So
It's immoral to take your own,
it's
speak
just a
frankly
society,
about
yeah. Yeah.
who you are.
Right, right, right. So thank you, Mimos Full. I appreciate you pointing that out. That's a very important point. Matt W. jumps in and says, what's your thoughts on Arthur Kwan Lee? I will comment on that in a second. Can't remember if I asked you that already. I'll just jump in real fast. So once again, like it's a case of a guy who out of nowhere is suddenly has like huge numbers and like a big following. And me, I'm a big advocate of like white Asian what's the word, like cooperation, or like I think whites and Asians need to work together against Zog. And there's many, I could make quite a good argument for this. Talk about the history of communism, high IQ cultures, traditional, blah, 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 blah. And so when I saw him at first, I was like, wow, this is wild. This is pretty neat. And then just very recently, he posted a photo of himself and he's dating some female influencer who that she was discovered to be Jewish and she had a nose job to make herself look white. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, ah, shit. Yeah, another psyop, So unless I'm wrong, which I could be wrong, but I mean, that's pretty damning. What do you think about that, Dillard?
Which part? The
The whole
nose job.
Yeah, yeah, like if you're, like, oh, look who I'm dating now, and I'm like, well, we've already figured out that she's a gatekeeper. You know what I'm saying? And
Well,
now
the
you're,
social approval is very strong, and the want to be accepted is very strong, and they play on that quite a bit. I mean, how many people like I'm thinking of like Patrick Casey have like been a part of nominally part of our group or part of our thing, and then just
yeah.
totally turned and became like a turncoat for us. Is like what was it all for show? Did you just put it on as a performance? To get close to people so you can get information from them? Like how deep does, I don't know. It's like some people just feel like they're double agents from the start. Like they went
Mm, mm,
into
mm,
having a relationship with a group, just trying on like kind of identity to infiltrate it. And
mm,
like,
mm, mm,
and I've been tricked, like, before, and it's like,
mm.
when did the insincerity start? You know, and when did it
That's
stop?
yeah,
Or was
that
it always, you know,
right.
it's like, how can you do that? Like, how can you be such a shapeshifter? Like,
That's yeah.
that's kind of what we're fighting.
Right, right, right. It's really hard to trust people who start off as your friend and then, come out and expose themselves in some way as like a Fed or someone who's, trying to gatekeep you, what have you. And then somehow they want to come back and be your buddy again. It's like, oh my God. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, they thought you were stupid to begin with, that you fell for it, that they were watching you and getting a paycheck for like reporting on your white positive content, you know, like that's worth reporting on. Um, and then I don't know, dude. I don't know. That's really really heartbreaking to hear about Patrick Casey too, because I thought he was a solid guy. Um, but let's see, are we answering the question here? So you know, I have a weird point of view on people like Arthur Kwan Lee, whereas like people like that, in a sense, are doing a lot of work for us. They are they're popularizing our talking points. I don't know how this a guy like that can come out of nowhere and suddenly is like a major influencer, and now he's doing the talk show circuit or some shit.
Like an Ian
Um,
Carroll kind of guy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, no, I buy into Ian Carroll being for real more than I do Quan Lee. Big for various reasons. He just had he wanted to have like a huge convention in Boston, and he's all excited about it. The dude is very naive. He doesn't understand how it actually works. I mean, I love him, and he's super smart, and he's doing great work. But he hasn't been down. He hasn't been in the movement long enough to know how it works. So some people, like a lot of people, called the location and basically said, like, this guy's a Nazi, and you gotta shut it down, shut it down. So he was pretty upset that, like, oh damn, wow, like
Now he's got
they
to prove
weapon.
that he's not a Nazi.
Well, I mean, they came out in force. They organized against him, and they shut down his convention. And he was going to have all these speakers and bands, and it's going to be a cool time. And it's the kind of thing that we all, back during the alt right, that's what we all wanted. That's what we were talking about, and it's kind of the culture that we had. And then the frickin' Antifa and the feds just had a field day on us. And then after that, it was like, oh shit, wow, we got burned. And so now we know, we kind of, I don't know, dug in into the sort of darker corners of the internet or something like that. We just went underground. I just put it that way. And that's how it is. It's how it is. So I don't know. That's my answer. Do you want to comment on that? Do you want to go there?
Um, I don't know. I would just launch into a something about sincerity and
Hmm.
social approval. People really want that social approval, or they, want
Yeah.
to be, they want to be seen. They want access to a wider audience, and so
Hmm. Hmm.
they have to give. And from my point of view, there is no giving because this is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a battle between groups, and my group is firmly
Yeah.
defined, and my
Yes.
enemies are firmly defined, and I'm not going to,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, give them an inch in my mind at all. I'm not going to adopt false consciousness
Yeah.
to suit
Mhm.
my enemies, which is what they want. All they want is to install a false consciousness into you. We were talking about like
Mhm.
commercials or something, like those
Yeah.
are magical
Yes.
spells,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's so. This is a. a terrible truth, but people, they just, they're freaking lemmings. They behave according to what everyone else is doing around them. It
Yeah.
sucks, but it's true. Like it, and so we controlling our media is one of the most important things we could possibly do, because we have to control that kind of social
Oh yeah.
mechanism. You know what I'm
That's why
saying?
they deny us
Yeah,
the culture and the,
yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
get the gatherings and stuff.
Interesting. So let's move on. Matt also added, he said the Germans and the Stash Men got a huge fan base on X, including Arthur. Ha ha ha. Thumbs up. Whoa, who? Not Lily Gaddis. Is it? I'm not hip enough to know her name, but that's probably her. She's got blonde hair. She looks like a white cheerleader kind of girl.
Oh, are you talking
Um,
about that Sarah Stock?
Again, I don't know her name. She's like Kwan's new girlfriend though. Anyway,
Oh.
Matt W
Oh, I
says
don't know.
I saw this post with Leonarda Johnny, who's she's a female comedian who's extremely like race aware, if you want to call it that. Like she's pretty out there. Even though, well, I'll just stop there. I saw this posted with Leonarda Johnny. She was sitting with him at a restaurant somewhere. You don't mean her, do you? No, absolutely not. That was definitely not her. Mimos Full says there's a saying something like, I don't see hatred as a cause whenever stupidity is equally likely. That I know what you're saying. It's a type of a paraphrase that you're using there, that like you can lean more on stupidity or ignorance than actual hatred. So, it's like these liberal whites that are like, whites have no culture, and they do their little shtick, they do their little act, because they want to be popular among their self-loathing liberal friends. But they're ignorant. They're profoundly ignorant. Yeah, they're trapped in that kind of social cocoon, whatever that cult of anti-white personality. But you got a point. So anyway, Matt, I don't know, jump in anytime. By the way, Dillard, if you're like, oh yeah, I want to comment
Okay.
on something, don't be afraid to interrupt me.
Yeah, that whole
Um,
thing, they reward that stuff,
mhm.
and I mean, I don't know, Antifa has been sort of turned off. It seems like it's
For
interesting
now.
how they just disappeared.
Well, they're in hibernation. They haven't disappeared as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
Um,
they're out
because
there.
yeah, they're still out there. They're okay. Matt W says Ian Carroll went soft on the JQ on Rogan. I noticed
Yep.
that. Did he whole? Well, did he whole not all baloney? Oh, did the whole not all? I didn't see the entire interview, but I this is what I mean about Ian Carroll is naive. He's not. He's got a ways to go. I don't mean that insultingly. I'm not trying to insult the guy, but like you got to put some time into this movement, and and kind of go through the paces, and get your lumps, as it were, to really know, how it works. And then it's like, do you remember when Lucas Gage was on a mission to find the good ones? He's like, okay, I'm talking about Jewish supremacy. I'm going hard. You guys are sending like the police to my door. You're scaring my family. You're threatening my life. So please,
Sending pizzas to his house. I remember that.
yeah, like please, the good Jews, will you stand up and come out and make a statement and you know get engage me in some conversation, blah 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 blah. And they never showed up. They never came. They never
Almost as if
came.
they don't exist.
Exactly. Fucking exactly. And so this is where I'm going with this, is like whites are so kind and compassionate, and will give you the benefit of the doubt, and will give you a second chance, and on and on and on. And what do they do? They just shit on your face, over and over and over. You give them an opportunity, they'll do it.
They
So
hate you. They hate you for
this.
who you are.
That's what whites, they'll do every
It's the
single
old.
thing.
They're the most racist, hateful people. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's right in the damn Talmud. I mean, literally, it's like, even the
yeah,
even the best of the Gentiles should be killed. Holy shit,
yeah.
like try to explain your way out of that one. Try to explain your way out of that one. So, and then, that's in the Talmud, and then you've got, Rabbi so and so over here saying, "Oh, by the way, Trump is helping us out, and our Savior's coming on October 2nd, 2027." So, guess what? You know, guess what's going to happen sometime around there? I would put my money on full scale through World War III, full scale. And then Trump and his minions, which of course are all Shavos goys, that's when the shit's gonna hit the fan. That's when the rubber's gonna hit the road. So I don't know. Am I scared? Sure, of course I'm fucking scared. Am I gonna dwell on it every minute of the day? No, not at all. I think I'm not actually scared in some regards because I have my own little gig. I won't go there, but that's
Well,
another topic. Go on.
at this point, it is incremental. Right now, they're trying to get hate speech laws in
Yes,
place. You
everything
hear,
is boiling frog. Yeah.
yeah, you hear Republicans talking about hate speech laws, and they're drawing the line at Hamas. Like there's that Mahmoud,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
forget his name, but he's a Palestinian. He is a an American citizen. And he has a wife and like a kid. I
Yeah.
think in Chicago or New York or something. But if they can, and they
Hmm.
haven't charged him with anything, and it's literally just because he organized a protest, which is legal. And if
Yes.
he's
Yes.
a U.S. citizen and he's not on a visa,
Correct.
then he has rights. So it's
Yes.
like, so they're being contacted by like legal scholars and stuff, and they're just
Hmm.
asking like, what is going on, what is he being charged with, because they're trying,
Hmm.
I think, to start a precedent. Because if they can get that guy, it's just like
Yeah.
the Patriot Act. Like they're not
Yes. Yes. Yes.
gonna
Yes.
just
Yes.
use it on the Muslims. They're gonna use it
Correct.
on you.
Everybody. Yes. 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 Yeah, and that's just the beginning of the whole process. I'm really glad you brought that up. I don't think there's much I can even add to that. But let me add or go back to the chat. Mimos Full says, and that's almost every time. Every angry, mean individual often do most of what they do accidentally or stupidly. There's something to be said for that. Um, Mimos Full, what do you guys think of parallel universes, time travel, and everything theories, rebirth, universal connection? Wow, you just threw a hot potato in there, didn't you? This kiddo right here, I'm telling you. Let me just say a quick good morning to Talks. Welcome back. And I'm going to kind of run through Matt W. We'll get back to Mila's Full's question in a second. Matt W says Gage proved it's all of them. Yes, guys, is that his friend? I came late. We're just talking politics as usual, kiddo. I can't. You might not like today's show because like this one's super hot. It's a spicy, spicy show. So just warning you. Anyway, what do we got? Back to my Mimo's Full. I believe you're female. I keep thinking you're female. I can't see your icon. It's super tiny on my phone. I always don't know how to refer to you. But let's get back to the question. What do you guys think of parallel universes, time travel, and everything? That's a big one. That's a couple questions. Rebirth, universal connection. I'm not even. If you by rebirth, if you mean reincarnation, I can talk heavily on that topic. I don't know what universal connection is per se. I mean, is it like, everything is one in the quantum field? Is that what that is? Um, I'm going to toss the mic over to Mr. Thurman here since I've been talking so
Oh,
much. Yeah. Can you handle it?
I don't really have too much beliefs in those directions. I used, they're interesting. I just find them to be so speculative as to be just irrelevant almost, because I personally am a person that's involved with the here and or yeah, what's going on Earth. Like I don't really
Okay.
entertain.
Okay.
I find it as a almost like a psyop to depoliticize people to get them into, you
Mm,
know, I went through that whole phase of like psilocybin mushrooms, and I
mm,
looked into the ancient alien stuff, and I
mm.
arrived here because
Wow.
it's the most relevant, you know. And I don't,
Hmm.
I feel as though a lot of that is just kind of entertainment to an extent, because it's like
Mm,
what is the at the end of the day, I'm a finite being on a planet who, you know, is involved in war of a certain of types going on
yes.
simultaneously, and
Hmm. Hmm.
that's what I concern myself with. Whether or not there are alternative universes, I don't have access to them, and I don't know what it would take for me to get access to them, and I don't know what it would benefit me.
Mm,
Anyways, I wouldn't want to leave my life to travel
mm,
astral project into, you know, oblivion. I wouldn't know how to navigate. I'd have to, you know,
mm.
I'm interested in a sort of tapping into a collective consciousness or an akashic record
Yeah.
library, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
ethereal type thing. That would be neat,
Hmm.
but I don't have any I don't have any access to it at the moment.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
That's what you got, huh?
Yeah.
Um, anybody who knows me and my show, you know, I could talk for an hour on this topic, and I don't want to be like that guy, you know, who like just takes the mic and just runs wild. So
I'd be interested to hear
I
about it.
you sure, yeah, because like, oh boy, I'll try to give some concise answers and not go off into la la land so much. So hold on. Um, so start off parallel universes. Um, I think that because we lack language for things that science and I'll put this is super hard to explain. Um, Magic and occult and these things are just sciences that we don't know yet, that we don't have words for yet. Uh, the quantum physics is probably the area in which all of these things intersect, and so we only really have like sci-fi linguistics to even talk about these things. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about them, for people who are really kind of materialistic or just practical in any way, it sounds goofy because you're not, I don't know, whatever. Again, it's try to imagine like you're going to the, I don't know, going to the Amazon rainforest and you pull out your cell phone and you show a native there. Oh, check this out. This is called cell phone. They would think it's magic. They'd be like, "You're a sorcerer, and you got a magic thing, and if you take a picture of me, you're stealing my soul." And you get what I'm saying? Like, so we are not any different than that in the regard that we don't understand a lot of these things. You see what I'm saying? So the better way to approach these topics is just with healthy curiosity. Be skeptical. Yes, be skeptical. That's totally fine and normal, and that's part of the scientific process, but don't be an asshole. You know what I'm saying? Because like I find that there's a lot of just assholes out there, that are like, you believe in UFOs, you're stupid. I'm like, okay, go back to high school, retard, because like the fucking government's already like admitted it. And if you haven't ever used the internet, maybe you might see like one of the millions of fucking videos, you retard. So I don't like dealing with those kind of people, that kind of attitude. It's irritating. Anyway, I'll shut up on that. I went off track already. So parallel universes, yes. And what the way to approach that topic is through understanding dimensions, like what are different dimensions and what does it all mean. So a good way to enter that question is to start researching ufology, and then there's a lot of people, a lot of scientists in there that will be able to talk about that with you and talk about it intelligently. And so you can start approaching the matter like a lawyer. Like, okay, I'm gathering evidence for a case, and I need to know, what evidence exists that says that there's parallel universes. All right, do out there, and go. You don't start off by saying no, they just don't exist. Like, that's just imbecilic. It's truly imbecilic. You that is more superstitious and anti-science than anything else. You have to. It's sort of the burden of proof type thing. You've got to prove that it's wrong. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, there's that. Time travel. Well, again, a lot of people who've been abducted by UFOs claim to have experience with that. Once again, like, I don't have all the names. I've just got to create a cheat sheet of like names and shit. But in my time that I've researched it, there's been a variety of people that say that aliens have time travel technology. You know, how does that work? I don't know for sure, but it has something to do with multidimensionality. So, for example, time and space don't exist in the same form in the fourth dimension as it does in the third dimension. It's linear in our dimension, whereas in other dimensions, all times exist simultaneously. And then there's potential times, and it gets wacky. It gets very confusing. But again, if you go into the field of studying these things, then you'll find it quite fascinating. All I am is a guy that has kind of gone in that world. It's like Dillard said that he experimented with like psilocybin and stuff. Imagine someone who's never tried it and try to explain it to them. Until you kind of go out and do it yourself and really kind of get the firsthand experience, it's just all talk. Does that make sense? What else? Rebirth, universal connection. So the from my perspective and my studies, the so-called universal connection is what I would call mind. What the Buddhists would call mind, and in the regard of like, and then there's probably some occultists that would say that like everything is the mind of God. That in some regard we are the dream of God. Um, and that appears to have some kind of quantum entanglement, if you will, if you want to use that term, whereby everything is tied together. So that they've discovered that they have some way of knowing that, like, if you split a photon and you move it to another side of the planet, that they will behave as if
Mm.
they are one, for example. So like that seems to indicate some form of quantum entanglement. So I keep drawing off camera. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to be a little more intelligent about that. Sorry. So those are ideas you can chew on. I am a strong believer in reincarnation, and I do want to comment on the Akashic records that Dillard just brought up a second ago. Um, from again like an atomic science kind of perspective, um, everything's energy. Energy cannot be destroyed, and therefore reincarnation. You see what I'm saying? So I think that for most people, the idea is kind of foreign because we grow up in like a Christian paradigm, and it's just not part of what we think. It's not part of our culture. Um, there's lots of things. I did, what do you call it? How's it called? Past life hypnotherapy. I did that once.
Hmm.
I'm not super convinced about that as a thing. I think I did it once and it was an interesting experience. But I don't feel as if I'm not convinced it's real. Is all I can say. I think maybe it is. I don't know, but I gave it a shot. I kind of put it out there like that. But that's not the point. The point is more along the lines of like theoretically it makes sense if you can understand that. And then there's multiple cases of people who, like children who, would say things like, my name is not Joe Schmo, it's Harold Butterworth from, Cambridge something or other. Who fucking knows? And then like, oh, okay, well, let's take you to that place. And when the kid gets there, he says, okay, it's going to look like this. You're going to see, like there's a greenhouse by the shore, and there's a fence on the left side, and the blah 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 blah. And you get there, and all of that shit is there, and so there's no freaking way that a kid could know such things unless he or she was reincarnated and they just have past life memories. Now, it's rare, it is rare, but such cases exist. So you can kind of look into that. What else? Oh yeah, the Akashic records. So I have a very, very crazy story. Again, I think this is the last of my yammering. I gotta get back to, I don't know, let Dillard talk for 10 seconds. Let's see. Plus, there's even more comments here to go through. Well, you know what? I'm gonna pass on my story. I had a very powerful paranormal
Aw.
experience. I know, but it's so trippy that a lot of people are just gonna think I'm crazy, basically. But as far as I'm concerned, it's very real. I'll just do it. I'll just slam it out there, and you guys can think what you want. So, one, I don't know when this happened. Gosh, that's many years ago. I'm sleeping. I'm in a deep, deep theta sleep. Theta is the brainwave levels where you're totally unconscious. It's as if you've been like you're under anesthesia and in a surgery, like you're dead unconscious. You have no knowledge that you're sleeping. You're not dreaming at all. It's literally total darkness. You have no senses at all. That's theta. So I'm in a theta state of sleep, and suddenly I have this experience as if somebody turned on very, very bright lights, like the lights that you see at a football stadium.
Mhm.
You know how like there'd be like 20 giant lights that are like super, super high powered. Well, imagine you're in a theta sleep, and then somebody turns on those lights right in front of you. It would shock you awake. It would shock you awake, And so I wake up, and I'm floating in an absolute black void. I'm completely naked, and I'm floating in space and not space where there's stars in space and planets, but like a void, a literal void. Except for in front of me, there is an infinite wall of living light, and it's made up of these cells, and each cell is undulating, uh, kind of bubbling and undulating in some fashion that almost looks like they're alive. That's why I said like a living liquid light. And I mean, I'm completely in shock. I'm in total absolute shock. And I'm trying to apprehend, where am I? What's going on? Am I dead? You know what I mean? Did I die? Because this is completely insane, And like, did I die in my sleep or something? Like, where am I? It's a pretty shocking experience.
At this point, you're conscious, though.
I'm wide awake, wide awake, and I can see my body, and I look all the way down to the horizon, and it's like imagine you're floating not horizontally, vertically, and then in front of you, about 12, 15 feet away, is this wall of living light that's made up of all these cells of liquid light. and I look to my left all the way, and I can see the horizon where, on the right is just this infinite wall of light, and then behind me is a total black void, a complete black void, and I'm floating weightless out here. And so I'm so totally blown away at what I'm seeing that I kind of float closer to it. Somehow I was able to do that. And I wanted to get a closer look at these cells, and to try to understand what they were. And then I had the instinct I really, really wanted to touch it. I really wanted to touch it. And when I reached out, I felt like a gravitational pull pulling me into the wall, and I retracted, thinking like, holy shit, if I go in there, it's going to suck me in and I'll die. I will be totally absorbed into this massive information wall of informational light. And that scared me. And that's when I woke up. I didn't wake up, like jump out of my bed, wake up, but I was like back asleep in my bed, but asleep in such a way as I'm dreaming, or you're not dreaming, you're half awake. I don't know what to fucking call it. Gamma. I don't know what that is. Like in the morning when it's like, well, your alarm clock's going to go off and you're not totally asleep, but you're sleepy. Does that make sense? Whatever
Hmm.
that state's called. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm just in a total state of shock trying to figure out what just happened to me. Now, that happened to me twice. That did not just happen once. That happened twice. And the second time, I was much calmer and I was like, oh, wow, this is happening again. I didn't make it happen. I didn't try to make it happen. I had no intention to make it happen. It just happened. And it's never happened since. But I have an instinct that wall of living light was the actual Akashic record. Like it was all information, all knowledge, infinitely in one place. And that's just sort of what my instinct tells me.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, like, if I ever go back, if that ever happens again, maybe I will touch the wall.
You gotta hurl yourself into that thing.
um, I could be like comatose for the rest of my life because my
Yeah,
brain
yeah.
would
On
be.
second thought, maybe if you don't come back, maybe that
That's sort of what I'm
you'll
trying to
find
think.
that on the other side. Oh, that's when time dilates or concentrates, and then when you come back, it's your 10 years later.
I could be in a coma of some kind, and then like I don't know. I really, really don't know. But the desire to find out is super intense. I really want to know what that is and what happened. I this is the first time I've told you guys. The only other people I've told about were people I used to attend a Tibetan Buddhist school and studied Tibetan Buddhism for many years. And when I say studied, I mean practiced it, where lamas come in, and all this, lots of practices, regular meditation sessions and reading and, full on practice. But, and those people are very familiar with the paranormal. That's not weird to them. They get it. So I was able to tell them about it. And they're like, "Yeah, cool, Don." I'm like, "Yeah, wow, neat. Good for you." But again, I don't know. I think when I die, I'll probably go back there at some point and figure that out. It'll be like, "Oh yeah, I remember this." You know what I mean? That's so.
That's the light
That's
that you want to go into, as opposed to the.
the archonic light. Yeah, don't go there. You'll get reborn again into this hellhole and never get out, because by that time they'll have everybody. You'll be born with a chip in your brain as soon as you come out of the womb, which would basically be like a plastic bubble at that time. They'll fit you right away with a chip and you're fucked. Anyway, that was charming. Okay, so let's move on. Mimos Full says, I did the opposite, started where you are, and then had the hallucinations. Interesting. Very good points, Kent. I hear you. The novelist nightmare, time travel. Did you guys know light travels every path, then converges on the most efficient? No, that's pretty fascinating.
Hmm.
Unless this is a computer game or God made it, light shouldn't know the most effective path. That's pretty wild. You know what I just found out is that if you put two mirrors facing each other and you make one of them kind of move back and forth in like a pulsing pattern, it actually creates light. There's something about that literally creates light. That's trippy. So I'm like,
Huh.
wow, I would like to make a room like that and then do like qigong meditation inside there, because qigong is all energy, and then light is energy. So you can only imagine the result would probably be nuts. Anyway, that's just me being a crazy man. But I don't know. Am I freaking people out? Am I a wackadoo? I don't know. Hey, dude,
I have.
it happened, man. I don't know. You can believe whatever you want. I don't know what it was, but I on my blood and my bones, on my family's name, I attest that this definitely happened to me. Okay, moving on. Matt W says, "No, you only live once, then go to heaven, where you sing praises of the demiurge for all eternity, feeding him." Great,
Sit around the throne and sing Alleluia.
yeah, that's the only reason you exist. This physical world is evil. Moving on. How do transgenders and reincarnation have similarities? Man, this show is turning into like it's going cray cray, man. It's off the rails.
Is this the
Uh,
beginning of a joke?
I don't think she's joking. I think she's sincere. So according to the people that I follow and study, and like the teachers that I have, you're when you're within certain, if you're reincarnated over and over within certain dimensions, you always remain one gender. When you split off from the godhead, you become one or the other as you go down into lower dimensions. So if you're male now, you're going to be, until you reach nirvana or you merge back into God, or at least exist on, like, the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth dimension, then you're still going to be male or female depending on whatever, you know when as you reincarnate. So transgenders are mentally ill people. They're deeply, deeply mentally ill, damaged, psychologically damaged people. They're up to 50% suicide rate. Um,
Which is the
that's,
point.
yeah, that's 100% the point of what all that sickness is to kill
Mhm.
off us, and it's mostly whites, of course. Um, so that has no it from a karmic point of view. Whatever you wouldn't be born as a woman, rather you would be born with the what is it called, gender diaspora or something. You'd be born with the problems and the trauma and the karma that made you become transgender in your next life. It doesn't just go away, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I've heard. I can't like prove
That's
that
the
or
whole
confirm
wheel
it.
thing. Like your soul is affixed to us like a wheel of progress, and you pick up where you left off, or you're punished for your past life, or you're set at a disadvantage in your next life, according to like your karma of the
Yes.
last life,
Yeah,
until you
exactly.
reach what dharma and then nirvana.
So, um, I mean, I can use all the fancy foreign words, but it just confuses people. It's better to kind of try to just use English to, like, Dharma just simply means the Buddhist teachings, but
Hmm.
in a more sophisticated sense, in Buddhism they say that everything teaches Dharma, like everything is a reflection of the truth of
Yeah,
Buddhism.
my
Yeah.
impression of what the word meant was kind of just living in harmony with your who you're meant, the true expression of yourself in the world.
That's an aspect of it. I mean, if you were to read Buddhist texts, they literally would say Dharma is the Buddhist teachings, But,
Okay.
I mean, that's profound. The Buddhist teachings are very, very deep and broad and wide and profound. So, like, it doesn't not include what you just said. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not wrong, but that's not the whole of it, is what I'm saying. So
But the
moving
Buddhist
on.
teachings are sort of how you get there
Uh, get where?
to Dharma.
So, I mean, let's look at it this way. I want to go to Seattle. I need a map, and so the map is the Dharma. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's you don't attach yourself to it. You just use it to get to nirvana. Nirvana is a state of uh, no suffering. I don't know that it's really 100% possible to. I don't know, man. You have to be pretty esoteric to understand nirvana fully, I think. But what's important is just knowing that we no longer reincarnate and we no longer suffer. That's the key. That's the purpose of Buddhism, is to end suffering. And not only just for yourself, but for all beings, depending on what path you take. That's the Bodhisattva path. That's the vows that I took when I became a Buddhist. Anyway, moving on. How do trans? Okay, Matt says when you read the Bible with truth goggles, it's pretty shocking what awaits us in the afterlife. Sounds like a nightmare. So you're opening a huge can of worms. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Yahweh is the demiurge. I
Hmm.
think that true Christianity would completely cut the Old Testament out and just be the teachings of Jesus. And not only that, any kind of apocryphal Gnostic teachings would be put back in. There's a lot of tricky stuff in that area. This is why I can't call myself a true Christian, because I think so much of Christ's message is just hidden, and hard to. I need something more solid. This is why I turned to Buddhism, because it's extremely comprehensive. And I'm not saying one's better than the other, or trying to offend Christians. I'm just saying, speaking for myself, these were the things I had to do. Mimo's full. There's an obvious question that rises. Yes. Let's see what the message is. Do you look at yourself or feel like you are naked? She's referring back to oops. Oh crap! I hit the wrong button. Anyway, I am not naked. Interesting story. So not right now, anyway. Mimo's full. So you must be dreaming, and the light can't have awoken you. So a dream is a dream, and we all know what it feels like to be in a dream. And we know what it feels like to be awake. But I'm awake in a kind of etheric form, sort of. I think that I basically did some kind of astral projection at, at that time. That's my best answer, based on the research I've done on such matters. So I'm 90% sure. I think that most people would explain it as a spontaneous astral projection. Moving on. Talk says he is having a wired dream. Damn. Okay. Alcoholic is here. Alcoholic. Hey, buddy. I've seen it too, Ken, and I went into it. Dude, holy heaven, you got to talk to me about this, man. Oh my God. Okay. AmericanZarathustra@gmail.com. I need to talk to you, dude. I've never heard of anybody experiencing this before. And if you have any kind of knowledge on this, I desperately want to know. I desperately want to know. AmericanZarathustra@gmail.com. Shoot me up a message. Stat. Okay. Get on it. That's exciting to hear. Wow. Who are you on live with?
Oh,
Um,
me.
yeah, this poor guy can't get a word in edgewise while I'm hogging the mic through the whole show. Dillard
Oh,
Q.
that's fine.
Thurman
Oh.
of ZOG Comics. Dillard, why don't you give yourself a little promo, man? Let people know what you do, who you are.
Um, I do edgy pro white comics,
Mm-hmm.
pro white anti enemy.
Mm-hmm.
More emphasis on the anti enemy, I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah.
because that's my bent. Uh, yeah, I post on Twitter, and I have an Instagram for ZOG Comics, and I'm working on a comic book series at the moment called Clowns of the Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of my main thing that I am trying to put a lot more into so it gets done.
Mm-hmm.
That's my main focus at the moment. So I can get on to other projects. But
Yeah,
this one's a lot of fun.
cool.
And I've got like 10 episodes planned, and I'm going to hopefully get a lot more out in the next years to come. That's what I'm all about. Oh, I'm
Awesome.
writing a novel too.
Oh, sweet. Wow. Tell us about your novel.
I'm writing a novel called The Degradation World. There's an outbreak on the
Okay.
surface of the planet where people turn into these sadistic, psychopathic murderers, and they somehow like their skin turns gray, and they get initiated into this group called the Freaks. So they're called the Freaks, and upon initiation, they cut off their noses and they torment people all over the planet.
Damn.
So our hero, hears the radio and it tells him to go to a FEMA camp, and so he goes, and then
Mm,
he arrives, and there's a woman with her child there that also get taken down into the camp. He's interrogated beforehand, and then once he gets there he discovers that there's this big underground, sort of base underground in the ground. I don't know if I'm being redundant there, but yeah. So and then this whole sort of society unravels itself to him, where it's kind of a dystopic reality down there in the FEMA camp. They've escaped the surface, and now there's like this sort of city center where everything happens, and it's just complete degeneracy. There's clowns. There's just perversions of all manner. It's Wymerica basically,
yeah.
and then the alternative is you can don a gray jumpsuit and be, well, in the book they're Christians. I just call them Christians. So he's indoctrinated either into the Christians, or he can go have
Mm,
the be a degenerate in the in like the Las Vegas Strip basically, and sort of
mm,
the
mm,
reality of the place sort of unravels from there, when he
mm,
finds out sort of the hypocrisy of the people around him, the true nature of the place,
mm.
and he goes to his apartment and he watches the live streams of drones going around showcasing the freaks basically pulling normal people out of their family homes, and they identify them, and then like kind of check the database to see if anybody in a FEMA camp is
Oh, fuck.
watching the TV at that time. It's
Oh,
it's a crazy, yeah, it's a
oh,
he's stuck in a nightmare,
yeah.
and yeah, and eventually he attempts to escape once he figures out what the place is all about. I have 3 chapters left, and
Mm.
that's basically the gist of it.
I I've been trying to learn about publishing on Amazon and things of this nature. So you and I could probably have some convo later about things like that. I can share my knowledge.
Yeah,
That sounds phenomenal. Very
but
dystopian. Who would you have direct this story if it were a film?
who was I? Who would I?
Who would you if you had any director? Yeah.
Oh, well, my favorite director is Paul Thomas Anderson, but I don't think that
Oh,
that would be up his alley.
no, but I love
David
him. He's great. He's got great films. Yeah.
David Fincher. I'm just gonna give it to David Fincher.
Oh, interesting.
He'd have to
Okay.
stay true to my my vision though, because sort of it's a mostly it's sort of a commentary on people turning into um freaks, turning into like you know, degenerates and stuff, and it's about like popular fiction and
Hmm.
media and how it kind of skews our minds. And
Remind me again what David Fincher has directed. I'm kind of
oh,
blacking
David
out.
Fincher, he's done Fight Club. That's his
Oh,
big
gotcha.
one.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There you go.
Panic Room
Okay. Gotcha.
7, which I don't recommend.
I didn't like Seven. No, I
I
don't
just
like.
felt I don't like those kinds of movies. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like movies to make you feel horrible. You know, like
Yes.
why? What the fuck is the point of this?
Well,
I
that's the
have a
point.
yeah. It's making you feel horrible is the point. I actually can actually literally confirm that. I have a friend who's a filmmaker, lives in California, and like he's actually in our movement, but so you can imagine that's kind of a hush hush thing. But he showed me some of his work, and it's that same kind of thing, like couple stranded in the desert highway, car broke down, and some weirdos come and they rape the woman, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, who wants to watch this shit? It's just so negative. Like,
Yeah.
how is this entertainment? I
That's yeah, that's
can't
kind of the
stand that
point.
shit.
That is
Yeah.
the point of what I'm getting at with like sort of the thesis of the book, is that this is entertainment.
Hmm.
Like people are drenched, their minds are drenched in, you know, lurid tales and true crime and,
Yeah, yeah,
gore and,
yeah, yeah.
horrible happenings, things going wrong. It's like I want to watch a
Mhm.
movie where everything goes wrong and the villain wins.
Ugh. Yeah,
Like
yeah. It's
that's
demoralizing. Yeah,
yeah.
I get your point. So there's been a lot of interesting comments I've been reading. Let's see. Tox is saying he started the live at 5 a.m. in my oh wow in your country and didn't check the phone. Okay, yeah. I mean we're it's a different time zone. Um, Great to have you back, Jay Bishop. It's so nice to have you. Thanks for coming last night as well. What else? What else? ZOG Comics. Dee, dee, dee. Me Most Full says, "What's astral projection?" So, it's essentially disconnecting your soul from your body and traveling around and then coming back into your body. That's what it is. So, um, I've been reading books about it, following various YouTubers to learn about it. There's a, believe it or not, the CIA had a program with this and remote viewing. And so there's something called the Monroe Institute, which I think is probably the best resource on astral projection. And everything I've seen from the Monroe Institute looks fabulous. Um, I'm at a level where I can do what's it called, lucid dreaming very well.
Mm.
So that's like a prerequisite for for astral projection. And I think since I had been doing lucid dreaming, that might have actually triggered the that spontaneous astral projection. I don't even know if that really was astral projection. It just was a very weird thing that happened to me. You know, I can't explain it. Um, there you go, and now you know. But man, this has been a lively show. Holy moly! And it's like 9:30. What time do we start? 7:30 ish.
Yep.
Yeah, gosh, we're kicking ass for 2 hours and still going strong. Wow. So, do you like Philip K. Dick? Are you into any of his stories?
Oh,
Through a Glass Darkly or any of that
my favorite was the
content?
transmigration of Elder Palmrich.
All right, well, tell me more about that. I don't know that one.
Oh, I don't. I know. Well, Elder Palmrich would he would show up in like different places, but and I don't remember a lot of it. But Philip K. Dick really goes into a lot like the Book of the Dead and
Oh, wow.
Egyptian myths and a
Wow.
lot of esoteric stuff. I mean, I don't remember a lot of it to speak intelligently on it, but I loved
Okay.
that one. I loved Ubrick and Doctor Blood Money.
Okay, guys, you're gonna have to tell us more about these stories. Like, what happens in these
Oh man, it's
stories?
been a while.
Oh, okay.
There's Martian Time Slip. I don't know. They're just fun science fiction. I
Yeah.
recommend all of them.
Okay.
You know, Doctor Blood Money was a sort of Manhattan. What's the Doctor Manhattan type?
Oh,
After a nuclear blast, he sort of gained superpowers somehow, and it's
okay.
in the post-apocalyptic wasteland of Southern California.
Mm,
And there's robots
okay.
and mutants. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. It's awesome. I love. Yeah, Philip K. Dick is one of the best.
Yeah, there's something really different about him. I just saw like an interview with him, just popped up in my feed, like today, and he was kind of claiming something to the effect that like his stories come from somebody else, that he channels them from some other consciousness. And
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
he wrote a book about it
"Mm,
called Valis that I
okay,
didn't get around to reading.
okay, about that specific thing that I just mentioned."
Well, he was visited. He claimed to have been visited by another consciousness that sent like a
Mm,
pink beam of light into him and like
yeah, yeah,
communication with it, and he called it Valis,
okay.
and that's an acronym for something, and I don't remember that
Oh,
either.
okay. So that kind of reminds me of something I was talking about the other night. I guess they have like, I don't know, DMT institutes now, or a DMT institute where they put, like, if I've never done DMT, I am interested in it actually, but anyway, if you if you do DMT, they say that there's like interdimensional beings that you interact with. That's
Oh,
like
now
how
you're talking
crazy
about
it.
Terrence McKenna stuff.
Yeah, this is Terrence McKenna territory for sure. Anyway, what I'm trying to say though is that they're doing research on DMT now, where they will put someone on like a drip, where they have, I guess if you smoke it, it lasts like 15 minutes or less, and then it's done. But now they have these sort of psychonauts on like a drip where they're in there for an hour or so,
Oh, jeez.
and they're trying to communicate with these entities and bring back whatever information they can from them. So,
Transdimensional elf machines. Or,
yes.
sorry,
Oh,
transdimensional elf
yeah.
machines.
You got to do it in the voice, right? The Terrence McKenna voice. If you guys have not been down the Terrence McKenna rabbit hole, then just look him up. He's a lot of fun. It's kind of sad. I think he died young, though. Like there's a sort of a great mind that went, too soon, kind of thing. One of the things that impressed me about him, I don't know if impress is the word I'm looking for, but he says that history doesn't go in a linear pattern, but rather in a spiral, and it accelerates as it continues. So in his theory, and
Time
he's saying
wave,
like,
I think.
I
Yeah.
guess probably that. I don't know what the names are for these things. But he's saying something like things are going to get weirder and weirder, and that's a very Terrence McKenna way of thinking.
Yeah, it
Uh,
accelerates.
but they are getting weirder and weirder. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, whoever thought the government would say yes, there are UFOs, and like, what are we going to do about it? I don't know. There's a lot of talk about,
Have they?
like, say again? Yes, yes, they have.
They have?
It's official. It's official. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can look this stuff up. Werner von Braun, who is a former Nazi that was brought over to America and helped get NASA established. Um, there's a woman who knew him during his lifetime, and his like deathbed request was beware the fake alien invasion. That's a pretty
Oh,
intense thing to say, because that's kind of that's pretty much the psyop people are talking about now. Is they're expecting the government to pull off a fake alien invasion. I wonder if that would tie in any way to the October 2nd, 2027 um,
the Moshiaka.
Moshiach appearance. You
Well,
understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
yeah, I think they've going to great lengths to create that sort of new religion
Hmm.
surrounding extraterrestrials with like
Hmm. Hmm.
the Chariot of the Gods stuff, and then the
Yeah,
ET
yeah,
even,
yeah.
and X Files.
It seems to be there. I mean, there's already a really well developed kind of, you know, new age culture out there around this stuff, and you've got people like I forget his first name, something Anka. He channels. He claims to channel an alien named Bashar. The
Oh
guy,
yeah, I remember
yeah,
Bashar. Yeah,
yeah. The guy, he seems very Jewy to me. He really seems very Jewy to me. Like I actually knew a Jew that looked exactly like him, talked exactly like him, and
he's
I'm
one of
like,
the types.
I don't know if I trust this guy, you know. Um, and again, it's always that like I'm here to help, and blah blah blah, and I don't know, I don't know.
He
Yeah.
claims that he's channeling a entity that is in a spaceship above the Pyramid of Giza, if I remember
Oh
correctly.
wow. Okay. Wow.
Very
I've
weird.
watched quite a lot of his channeling, if you will. Um, there's there's a lot to say about it. I think people can go and draw their own conclusions. Figure out what they think about it. Apparently, there was some kind of brain scan test done on him
Yeah.
during his channeling, and the results seem to show that there was like he has like a what do you call it? Like the space in between the two hemispheres of the brain has like a constant flow of electricity, of like neurological electricity, and this is not normal at all. Like this doesn't happen naturally. Um, that's an important part of the brain, and apparently, I guess when he's supposedly channeling, this is something that happens. Now, is it all part of the like did Mossad set this up and create all this? I mean, I hate to say it, but like that's where we're at. Like we don't know. Nobody knows anything anymore.
Well,
What's real.
it's a normal, it's a, I think, a healthy sort of curiosity. Like even the Third Reich had the N in Air Bay, and they went, searching out this stuff. They went to like Tibet to,
Yes.
looking for Shangri-La, and
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
Earth,
Yeah.
what is the true nature of the Earth? I mean, they investigated
Hmm.
all this stuff to find our hidden past,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, they didn't win, so we don't know all of what
Uh,
they found.
yeah. Because I went down the Marie Orsich rabbit hole
Yeah.
as far as I could go, and to the best of my research, you the real data on this, the actual paperwork or whatever documents this and that, they're hidden away somewhere. Like whoever, like I would assume that when the Allied forces won the war and they found these documents, they locked them up tight. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
definitely not going to let the public know about that.
But the claim is that she was in touch with, is it the Pleiades
No, no,
or Andromeda?
Aldebaran,
Oh, okay.
the Aldebaranese. I don't know what I would call them, but yeah. So apparently, she was a psychic and she channeled aliens from Aldebaran, and that they when they so she kind of downloaded the instructions to build a UFO. And that's how the Nazis got the UFO. She
Mm.
apparently was not a Nazi. Like she wasn't part of the ideology. of Nazism or something. So that's what's in the books that I've read about her.
Well, if she
Um,
loved her people, then she was a National Socialist.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know because there's so much shit that is twisted in history and in the writings of things. People who write about this stuff, they cover their own tracks by saying, "Oh, by the way, she was a good girl. She wasn't a Nazi."
Yeah, they're almost
And like,
obligated to shit on them,
they're
or
exactly
to yeah, to say that they
you're
weren't part
you
of it.
fucking nailed it. Yeah, it's like these people will make YouTube videos about World War II, but and you can tell what they're saying is like demonstrating that Hitler was right, but somehow they have to put in there like he was such a bad guy. He was such a bad person, and just do the usual kowtowing.
But the
Um,
Holocaust definitely happened, guys. Definitely.
yeah, yeah. Um, anyway, it is. Anyway, there you go.
I
But
like a lot of the UFO stuff. I have a I like the original sightings of extra, people that were coming out of UFOs were from Norway, and they were like peasant farmers, like women and stuff. And I was going to do a video on UFOs for my TikTok channel, and I
oh,
haven't been able
sweet,
to
sweet,
find
sweet.
any of these videos because it was like because part 1 was, the white extraterrestrials, because very quickly it turned into the grays. And I have a
Huh.
whole theory
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
about the psyop of the grays.
Well, hit us, buddy. I mean, last thing I want to say before you do that, though, is that the Aldebaran people were Nordics. They were
Yes.
whites, and so,
I think
but
that's the big cover up with the
that
alien
that's
stuff.
I think that they don't. Can you imagine if like white people from space came
Yeah.
down and with super high level UFO technology, they could easily save us tomorrow. They could
Well,
just like rock the world, like rock it out. And I mean, to me, that's my biggest dream. I would be fabulous. But anyway,
well,
go on with your psyop stuff.
Cro-Magnon came from somewhere, I'm just saying. But with they didn't think that the Japanese could in World War II, like 1942, they didn't think that they could cross the Pacific Ocean to attack the America on the west coast, and
Who didn't who didn't think this?
the American government.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I don't remember all the names, but the I guess the prime minister or the president of Japan at the time was some kind of chemical engineer, and he had developed chemical weapons. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
they were
They used.
afraid of him delivering these to the west
Mm,
coast
mm,
of America.
they use that on the Chinese quite a lot, unfortunately. But go
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
So but what they did have were dirigibles, and they had an elite sort of kamikaze group of pilots that would go through like a rigorous training. They all had to be 4 foot tall, and by the end of it, they cut off their pinkies and shaved off all the hair on their bodies, including their foreheads. I don't know how
Yeah.
that's relevant, but that's part of
It's
the
some kind of yeah. I actually can explain that stuff, but that's not relevant to this conversation. So go on.
so. But they had they had small crafts that would sort of attach to the dirigibles, and these dirigibles were successful, yeah, as the theory goes,
Mm,
on crossing the Pacific Ocean. And one
mm.
instance was the Battle of Los Angeles. So
Oh.
they had this large craft in the sky,
Mm.
and they had it illuminated and everything, and it was just out of range of anti-aircraft
Huh.
missiles. But they were able to shoot a lot of these smaller aircrafts with these kamikaze pilots in
Okay.
them down, and they did a lot of damage. Also in in trying to shoot it down to properties around that area, and people
Yeah, I bet.
signed.
Yeah.
They were hushed up. They signed away their rights to
Yes.
speak
Yes.
about it.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
so, as the theory goes, these kamikaze pilots were then taken to a secret military base called Area 51, where they did horrible experiments on these people,
Oh,
like
Jesus.
exposed them to like plutonium,
Okay.
and all this sort of stuff. The stuff that they accuse Mengele of, the greatest doctor in the world, by the way.
Oh, that I didn't know. Okay.
Oh, Joseph Mengele? No, he cured a lot of people.
Oh, wow. That makes so much sense. It's always the opposite of the truth. Everything's the opposite of the truth, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All the stories of the Holocaust, everyone had to meet Dr. Mengele, and they all described him like in different ways. He had like a monocle, he had like
Yeah.
a walking stick. Sometimes he didn't. But
Hmm.
so all these
It's like a
they
movie.
yeah. Well, it is that's where I
Yeah.
think modern movies come from, is the myth of the
Oh,
Holocaust.
God. Yeah. Yeah. Well done. That's a good point.
But so they transported these poor fellows to the Area 51
Mm.
and did all these horrible experiments on them, and then a little while later came along Michael Aquino, and he was head of psychological warfare during Vietnam. He did stuff like Project Phoenix, which I won't get into, but just
Mm.
basically they went into the villages while the Viet Cong soldiers were out and, in a way, demoralized them by doing basically serial killer stuff. And they
Mm.
would do weird stuff too by with like putting large speakers on helicopters and making demonic sounds and flying over
Oh,
the countryside and stuff.
oh, shit. Yeah.
So he did stuff like that. He did the Church of Set in the army. Set
Wow.
being the Egyptian
Yeah.
um, devil Satan
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
And so he was and and so the CIA, of course, after the Cold War, um, they didn't have an outside threat anymore, so they turned it on the inside. And
Mm.
he basically, Michael Aquino basically invented the gray alien um,
Mm.
by covering up these war crimes that they
Mm.
perpetrated on these Japanese fellows. He was a big
Mm.
fan of Aleister Crowley,
Oh, God.
and he
Mm.
modeled the gray after AWAS. Like Aleister Crowley went to the pyramids and he sat in the king's chamber, and he said to had been uh, channeled AWAS, this extraterrestrial, and he drew a picture of him, and he has like a big
Mm.
almond-sized head and everything. You know,
Mhm.
true or not, I don't think it's necessarily true, but that's what he drew. So what
Mm.
Michael Aquino did as part of like a cultural warfare on the American people was create
Mm.
the um, the alien gray, and you can I assume that they had also you pillaged the technology from Germany after the war, and I think that they have developed their own flying saucers, perhaps
Yeah.
anti-grav technology
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever, and
Yes, yes.
performed their own awful abductions and everything, and that
Yes.
all that mythology had come out in to the culture, with like X Files and everything. But
Mm.
so basically, the long and the short of it is that the alien gray is a racist caricature of an Asian person.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
if you look at the language from the time, they called Asian people aliens, and
Oh.
people weren't people. Most people had not encountered the Asian
In
race.
Yeah, in the 50s, it was very rare to see an Asian person in America or North America, I would imagine.
Yeah. And so
Well, that yeah,
if you read descriptions of like the Men in Black, for example, they're
yeah,
basically just short, odd behaving Asian people.
okay. That's a really amazing theory. That it really, really is an amazing theory. Um, I don't know where to go with it. I think that it's there's something there. You know what I mean? Like there's something there for sure. Having been a guy that actually has studied, UFOs for 19 years, um, there's so many abduction cases,
Mhm.
and so many of them corroborate. Um, they have alien bodies that I've like were dead from crashes and stuff. It's the internet. You can't know 100% for sure. You can only believe what you see based on having enough information to make you think that it's real. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, it's the same thing as if you were a detective and you walked in on a murder scene, and you have to try to determine by the evidence present that who did this. You put together a case, and I don't know. I'm still a believer in grays based on 19-20 years of researching this stuff. But I think that's a really, really fascinating theory.
Yeah.
Um, let
At the
me
very
jump.
least, it's pretty
Hold on. Let
interesting.
me jump back to. Or you wanted to say something? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Just that I do believe in the sort of Palladians. That's why I was so disappointed when I couldn't find those videos of Norwegian like grandmothers like talking about you
Hmm.
know basically a
Yeah.
flying saucer landing and
Okay,
then
here's a case that I would urge you to look into. There's a guy named Billy Myers, Billie, and Myers is Meier. He is a farmer in, I think,
okay.
Norway, Sweden, somewhere like up in the Netherlands. And he has massive amounts of video, photographs, uh, of apparently years and years of contact with an alien race that are white. They're white people. And so, like, if you're interested in that concept, whatever that genre, whatever
Yes.
you want to call it, that field, then look into him. Um, I think that it's a mixed bag. Some of the stuff is kind of, you're like, I think there's a little something's not right here, and then the other stuff is like, holy shit, wow, you can't deny. Like, this looks totally convincing. There's a particular group of photos where they have this silver UFO craft, and they flew it next to a tree, and they, like, try to imagine the disc of it, where the edge of the disc is pushed into where the leaves are of the tree to show the scale of the UFO, and that it's integrated with the leaves of the trees being pushed in like that, so that it doesn't look like someone threw a silver plate in the air and took a photo. You get my point?
Yeah.
And you can't. This is from the 1970s. There was no. I don't believe there's really any kind of technology that existed at the time that they could fake something like that.
Right. And before it
Um,
was even like a genre, like these people are
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was
making
no.
this up,
It
like
wasn't
these
so.
peasants.
Okay, this is what I'm trying to tell you is that in those days you were laughed at, ridiculed, and you could even be like fired from your job, and your family would abandon you. Like, you didn't come out and say, "I saw a UFO." You were ashamed of that information. You get my point. So to have gathered massive amounts of, like, photographic and video evidence, it's pretty crazy. It's a really, really great case. There's always gonna be the people out there that are like, "Oh, it's fake," blah, 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 and they go over the top to try to prove that it's not real. You can listen to them. You can look at their cases as well. But anyway, that's pretty neat. As it gets later, it's going on almost 10 now. Let me check the chat. I want to maybe. I think Jay Bishop left already. I believe I experienced an out of body dream only once when I was 10. I remember it like real memory because I was watching stuff going on in real time, but I was upstairs still sleeping. Very strange. Not uncommon. She says, I especially remember floating down the stairs instead of walking down the stairs. I felt the sensation of floating. Weird. I was just a kid, never experienced it again. That's powerful. Talk says, I saw Mr. Kent on my dream. That was so funny that he was on live, but with a lot of people. And I was thinking, why he have light skin? Isn't he A white guy? Yes, I am a white guy. Yes, yes, yes. If you haven't noticed yet. Anyway, that's interesting. That's fascinating that you had a dream of me. I don't know. I wasn't asked for projecting though. Let's see. Bishop says I have to get going. Oh, okay. She had to head out. Alcoholic says that was a real UFO. Alcoholic says I remote viewed myself onto a UFO by accident and it annoys the fuck out of them. I'll tell you what, bro. We gotta frickin' talk, man. You and I need to talk. There's something really weird just happened. My lights in my house just flickered. That was very weird. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that other people who do remote viewing have reported that aliens like grays or what have you, they're aware of you remote viewing and they'll look right back at you. And that there's even like there's like astral remote viewer guards that guard places like the moon and what do you call the place? South Pole, Antarctica. There was a woman that claimed she's apparently like a pro, astral projector, remote viewer or something, probably from the Monroe Institute. And she said she was snooping around Antarctica, and apparently they have like astral guards that catch people, and they tried to chase her down. And she said that she had to like sort of teleport herself to a couple different locations to lose them. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean it's kind of a little flippy, you know. Um, I don't believe that grays are good, in my personal opinion. I don't. I just don't trust them. I don't think they're.
They've never been anything but
Yeah.
malevolent. That Schneider guy, that
Which
Bill
Schneider?
Schneider. Yeah.
Which
When
one? I
he
don't know.
Oh, the one that talks about dumbs and he went down and lost a few fingers.
Oh
He
God, yeah. Oh my God, he's amazing.
Yeah, that
He
guy's
is
interesting.
amazing. Yeah, he was murdered. I don't know if you saw or you know about that
No, I
situation.
didn't get that deep.
Oh, I saw the photos from his file and like just like they choked him to death and he looked like he oh God, it was violent. They that was
Jeez.
bad. It was very it's haunting to see in your head someone who struggled the last moments of their life as he was being strangled and the it's very harsh, but yeah, this dude, he was one of the earliest guys to come out and reveal, the alien stuff going on underground. He was physically attacked. He killed some of them himself. There's a lot of stuff going on with that guy. But anyway, I cut you off
Oh
again.
no, that was it. Just Bill Schneider. Just bringing up that
Bill
Bill
Snyder. All
Schneider.
right. Well, yes, alcoholic. So please, please, please email me, American Zarathustra, like thus spoke the Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche, at gmail.com. Let's talk. Talks. It must have been a crazy ride for you tonight. This has been. I told you I have a spicy show. I'm gonna make alien friends. She says I'm gonna tell them to watch Mr. Kent videos. Yeah, have the aliens tune in. I would love to have one on my show. That would be wicked cool, you know? Like, so, have you tried not being an alien? No, 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 I wouldn't say that. That was a bad joke. Okay. Well, gang, I think I'm all aliened out. I think I'm all drawn out and pooped out from this cray cray conversation. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that think I'm totally off my rocker by now. God bless them. Um, Mr. Thurman, do you have any parting thoughts on this evening's show?
Um, no. Besides white solidarity and hail victory.
Hail victory. All right. God bless our people. We shall be free. All right. God bless you guys in the chat. Amazing night tonight. And we shall see you next time on Friday ZOG Comics Review.
Thanks, Don.
Cheers.